everyone, my name is Jack Wang. I am CEO of Longhorn Financial. I welcome to this edition of Webinar Wednesday. And tonight I'm thrilled to have a special guest with me who I'll introduce in just a moment. But this is another in the series of Webinar Wednesdays. So stay tuned for my emails as well as my weekly social media postings where you can get informed about upcoming topics. And so what I do is every other week I have a guest on, and then the alternating weeks is just me talking. We'll cover things like college planning, retirement planning, managing debt, other financial and various financial issues. But today I am absolutely thrilled. Oh, before I introduce our special guest, I do want to just make mention that if you have any questions, right, everyone's on mute with your cameras off. So if you have any questions, if you mouse around on your screen, there is a chat button at the bottom of your screen. Please chat in your questions and I can address those to our guests. Or if you're on a mobile device, you may need to tap your screen. I think on some mobile devices, the chat button's actually in the More category. But again, you can chat in your questions there. All right, so now I would like to introduce our special guest, Jon Younger of Assisted Living Locators.
Hey,
Jon,
Jack.
born up and grew up on the North Shore, right? Currently lives in Amesbury. And I've personally known Jon for a couple of years now. He's been in this business for about 4 years. But like many people who get into business, it was a result of a personal family situation, right? You had a family relative who was basically going through this process of moving into or finding assisted living. And as I know you're going to talk to us about sort of what that process was like. You're currently a member of the Amesbury Council on Aging Board of Directors, and the thing that's really awesome, I see you post pictures about this all the time with your son. You are a 25-year coach with the Special Olympics of Massachusetts, and I see those awesome pictures with your son, who's a great guy. I know I've had the chance to meet him.
Yes, you have.
Almost as tall as I am, and I'm not super tall, but you know he's got some height on him.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's great to have you, Jon. Thanks so much for taking part in Webinar Wednesday.
Hey, Jack, I appreciate the invitation and looking forward to helping folks understand assisted living and the process a little bit better than they do today.
Yeah, I'm sure you got a ton of questions. So let's get into this. So to start, let me just kind of take a step back, if you will, right? Assisted living is one type of elderly care / senior care level, if you will, for the lack of a better term, right? I think that most people associate long-term care with, of course, the nursing home, right? Like, and nursing homes get that rap, right? Oh my goodness, we're dreading the nursing home. But talk to us a little bit about sort of where does assisted living fit in on that scale? Is it sort of similar to a nursing home? Is it before a nursing home? Is it, right? Where does it fit in on the scale of sort of care for elderly?
Sure. That's a great question. These are all about levels of care and transitions of care. Assisted living is kind of like an umbrella term, and that's what I specialize in. I specialize in helping people find assisted living. But within assisted living is independent living, the assisted living, and within the assisted living is memory care. So you've got 3 levels normally within one community building where you can go to an assisted living and be totally independent. That's when, all right, I don't want to pay my property taxes anymore. I'm tired of paying the utilities. I'm tired of shoveling snow. I need a bit more of a carefree life. And that's when you go to your independent living, either senior apartments or public housing, things like that, where you live in a carefree life. You get your meals taken care of, you get lots of your activities, but you come and go as you please. Next transition might be the traditional assisted living, where it becomes an issue where you need help with some of your what they call ADLs, activity of daily living. These are things that you do on a daily basis: brushing your teeth, getting dressed, mobility, getting from one place to another, either cane walker or totally independently. Toileting issues. I mean, this is when the assisted living can can pick up some of those things that someone may not really be able to do anymore. And the next step beyond that is memory care. And that's for folks who have developed some type of dementia. The key there really is if somebody has become unsafe to stay at home, that's when the assisted living and the memory care comes in. Maybe your home isn't set up, maybe you're not able to go up and down stairs as easily. That's when assisted living can come in. Memory care, if you have a loved one and know somebody who gets up in the morning, gets dressed to go to work and walks out the door, but they've been retired for 20 years. That's a memory issue problem. That then becomes a safety issue for them and the folks around them. So that's kind of, and talking about the nursing home situation. So the nursing home is very different than assisted living. Assisted living is not a nursing home, and I think that's a concept or a conception that people don't understand yet or don't understand. Nursing homes are really for folks who need that 24/7 medical nursing care. Somebody who is on a ventilator respirator system, somebody who is has trouble swallowing and needs that guidance from a nurse to help them eat. Somebody who just is not mobile, just can't get out of bed anymore. Whereas assisted living is a non-medical model. So folks there are folks who go into assisted living and through the process of aging need to have some of those services, like they might need to have their food crushed up or pureed so that they can eat and swallow. That can be accomplished in assisted living. What can't be accomplished in assisted living is things like IVs, vents, those kind of things that are really medically oriented.
Right. So really, so it's interesting. I didn't know that there was necessarily levels in just within assisted living, but really, like you said, the difference between assisted living and a nursing home is really the level of medical attention that is needed, right? Assisted living is, okay, I can still take my own medicine, but I just need a little help getting around or fixing meals or whatever. Nursing home is, I need more or less round-the-clock care or close to it from a licensed medical professional.
Right. So in assisted living, there are registered nurses on staff, but that's only going to be mainly for the normal shift of like a 10, 11, 12-hour shift, where someone who needs help taking their medications, that can happen in assisted living.
Right.
But to your point, it's nursing home, you want to think of medically challenged folks who need that nurse there all the time.
Right. Okay. So thank you for clearing that up, because I know so many people, and even when I talk to people, this is the aspect of retirement planning as we all age. This is really the part that no one really likes to think about, right? No one likes to, no one wants to end up in a nursing home, right? Assisted living is a little bit different story. But John, there are so many, and I know that you visit a lot of assisted living facilities, and so you're the expert in, like Eastern Mass and beyond, quite frankly. But there's so many different facilities, some bigger, some smaller, some newer, some older. What, just in your experience, what are some of the differences, right? We'll get into sort of what some of the people should look for specifically, but just in general, what are just some of the differences that you see in the different facilities in terms of amenities or services or whatever, right? So, over here you may have A, B, and C, but over here you have D, E, and F. So what are some of the common differences you see?
Well, some of the common differences really start with, we talked about dementia and memory care. There are some buildings, some communities that all they do is memory care. They don't do anything else. So they have become experts on how to take care of folks with dementia. Other assisted living buildings will have assisted living and memory care. Other buildings will have independent living, assisted living, and memory care. So it's really all
covered
about
all the bases there.
Yeah, I know. So that's really, and most of them are all very good. There's I don't know, 265 assisted livings in Massachusetts, and I cover 198 of them. So there are just more smaller differences. You know, they're all very good. They don't all do the same thing, though. They don't all offer the same services. Like some of them will help with a certain type of medication management. When I say medication management, I mean somebody who needs help either, you know, managing their medications, because sometimes folks take a lot of different medications and it's easier just to have somebody there to help you do that. So there are even different levels of medication management, and that's really run by the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. You know, those are the people in the buildings. Somebody explained to me once really, really, really well. In assisted living, you can go from A to Z. Some buildings choose to go A to Z, do everything. Other buildings or other communities choose to just go A to M. So meaning that if you need 2 people to assist you, there are certain places that will do that, and there are other places that will not.
Right.
There are,
So that makes sense. And so that brings up another question. So because, you know, in just driving around generally, right? Although, you know, we're not driving around too much these days, but just generally in driving around, you know, you see the signs, you know, XYZ senior living, XYZ assisted living, but from the name, you can't tell, are they an A to Z facility or an A
right,
to M facility or an A to C facility,
right,
right? And yet you said that there's 260 something, you cover like 180, 190. I mean, how are people supposed to figure this out? That's a
yeah,
pretty wide range. And obviously that's why in your business, and we'll talk about sort of how you work with
right.
people, but you can't tell just by the facility
No,
name unless it happens to be in the facility name.
right, right. That's a daunting task. You know, it's real estate. It's everybody. It's the internet. Um, it's really all about being educated as to what questions to ask when you go to visit. If you don't know the questions to ask, you may not find out something until you move in.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what do you mean? What my favorite thing? What do you mean I'm not getting toilet paper with my room? I have to get it myself. You never asked that question. So this is
Yeah.
what I do. I've gone and visited all of these different communities, building facilities, and I understand what they do and what they don't do. Things about like being in New England, the generator system. Is it the backup system? Is it a new system or is it an old system? You know, so these are things
Right.
you don't know to ask those things because you've never done this before.
Right.
You may
Right.
have even had a family member or a friend go through it, but you're just walking into a place or calling them on the phone or trying to figure it out on the internet.
Right.
So it's very difficult. It's very difficult. So it's good to have, you know, somebody like myself or other folks who work in this assisted living world that can help you navigate the process.
So on that then, what are some of the things that the person, and I'm sure in most instances you're dealing not just with the person, right, because they're the one likely to move in, but also with their family, right, typically
Right.
adult children. um, what are some of the questions that people should be asking, or alternatively, what are some of the major things that people should look for, right? I mean, some of the smaller items we don't have time to cover everything,
Right.
but you know, what are some of the major points that they want to make sure that when they're visiting, they get these 3 or 5 questions asked or 3 or 5 points covered, so that when they walk out, they feel like they got a pretty good sense of that place.
Right. Right. So the thing that you want to do first when you walk into a building is get the beauty out of your system. I mean, they're all very lovely. They have staircases and chandeliers, and they're wonderful, nice, clean buildings. Once you've done your oohing and ahhing, then I say, okay, are you done now? And they say, yeah. I said, because you need to
Right.
understand that chandelier is not going to take care of your mother.
Yeah.
So then they kind of come down a little bit. And then we talk about the most important stuff, which is the care. So you want to find out about longevity of the caregivers. How long have they been there? The longevity of the management team, the resident care director, the activities director, the executive director, the salesperson. How long have they been there? But more importantly, the care is the most important aspect of assisted living. So the longevity is important. Training. Hey, tell me about your training program. How do you train your caregivers? To understand, do they understand if you're a memory care, are they certified in dementia? Do they get that kind of training? How long have they been nursing assistants or resident care associates?
Yeah.
So those are really it's all about the care and those kind of questions. You really want to, after you get through with talking to the wonderful salesperson, because they're very knowledgeable about their building and the services they offer, you really want to spend time with the resident care director, because they're the ones who are in charge of all those LNAs and CNAs, and they're the ones who set the programs and do the service plans. Yeah. So that's kind of, and I know we'll talk about the process in a minute, but that's really, if you're having a hard time making a decision, you got to sit down with the resident care director and have a comfort level with them.
Yeah,
because they're the ones in charge of the care.
Okay. And like you said, sort of get past the oohs and the ahs and the fresh coat of paint, which, while yes, important, you don't want the place being run down. But you're right. At the end of the day, it has really nothing to do with the quality of care that's delivered. Right. So, okay, so that's a really good thing. And in a lot of ways, you're interviewing, because that's the type of questions that I would normally associate with interview, but that's really what you want to do. So let's talk a little bit. So before we get to process, obviously the family is involved typically. But now on one hand, you never want a family where they're in a situation where it's, John, I need to find a place for my mother tomorrow, right? Like you never want to be in the last minute. But at the same time, I would assume that you don't want to be in a situation, John, I might need something in the next 10 years. Let's go take a tour today, because that's too early, right? So is there a typical time, or is there like a triggering event? Like, all right, you should probably start taking tours of these places. Maybe we don't need it right now, but we can kind of get a sense that it's coming soon.
Mm-hmm. I have had a lot of 24, 48-hour placements. People coming out of hospitals that didn't really plan well. But generally speaking, I think the trigger is when your loved one is just not safe to be home. So if they're living alone, can't go up and down the stairs anymore, they're just not safe. Living in a split level, and all of their, the kitchen's on the second level and their bedroom's on the first level, and going up and down the stairs. When folks become unsafe, that's when you say, okay, I've got to go look at some other type of living option. When a spouse, if they're a couple, when one spouse just can't take care of the other, it's difficult to be a caregiver. It's known that caregivers often pass before their spouse does.
Yeah.
Because of just the stress and strain on caregiving. So I guess the triggering factor would be if the caregiver just can't care for them anymore, or if the person just can't be safe at home anymore.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So it's not necessarily a specific time or anything, because you can't gauge these, right? No. Because everybody sort of progresses at their own rate. Now I would imagine that, like you said, many of the 24 to 48 hour placements, if they're just coming out of hospital and they realize that they need to go into assisted care right away, that must mean that while you may love all the fancy stuff and the chandelier, like you said, you may not have that choice, because the facility that you like may not have the room.
Right.
Or may not even be at the price that you're willing to pay. Right. So if you have 24 to 40 hours, it's almost like you take whatever you can get. Right.
That happens. Because they have to take what they can get. but I guide them into a place where they're not feeling like I have to take what I can get, because I know these places so well that I'm able to, call them up, do you have availability? What's your pricing structure look like? But what the other option is in assisted living that lots of folks don't know about is respite, short-term stay. I have clients that come out of that situation of a hospital or a rehab, and they're not quite ready to figure out what the next step is. So they can go to an assisted living and do a 30-day stay while the family gets all the affairs in order and figures out, do they want to stay where they are, or is their goal to get to another place? Are they respiting, waiting for something else that they've been waiting for a bit? So that's an option, is to do that. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about process, right? So if someone has an older relative who they're thinking this may be the time for this type of thing, maybe coming soon, not the 24, 48 hours, obviously. Just walk us through the general process of, the family you might work with, right? What happens, how do they start? What happens, so on and so forth.
So what normally happens is somebody would give me a call and we go through lots of questions, because I need to know everything that's going on so that I can match them with the right place. So we'll talk about the medical issues, what's going on. Are they able, is that person walking or not walking? Are they using a walker or a cane or a wheelchair? Can they get out of bed on their own? Can they use the bathroom on their own? Can they get dressed? Can they groom? Geography is very important too. Location. Where do you want to live? So you've really got 3 points. So you've got the medical side, you've got the location side, and then you've got the financial side. Because the last thing, my goal is to make sure that my clients get into the best place that's out there, so they only move one time. And they just stay there that one time, unless things happen that they have to leave for some reason. So my goal as objective is to make sure that I know that client well enough, and I know the community well enough, because I'm helping the community, the building, the facilities out as well, by giving them a good resident. I can't bring somebody who can't afford, general example, if it's $9,000 a month to live in a particular assisted living with certain care, whatnot, I'm not going to bring somebody who's only can do on a $5,000 a month budget to a place that's $9,000 a month. Right. That's wasting my client's time. That's wasting the facility's time. And frankly, it's wasting my time too. It's not a good use of time. Right. And I narrow it down to 2. And so after going through all that, I'm thinking as I'm talking to them, I narrow it down to 2 or 3 places, never more than that, because you can go to dozens. And believe me, in my early days, I did. I went to a lot. But you've got to narrow it down to 2 or 3. Okay. Any more than that, then there's something else. There's something else missing.
And then
somebody can't,
Right. And then once you narrow down 2 or 3, the family makes a decision. You then match them up with the essentially the admissions person, if you will, at these facilities.
Right. The salesperson, and we set up a tour. Go on a tour with them. So it's like, that's when it kind of becomes like I always talk about like a real estate broker, is I will actually go with the families on the tours and help them ask those questions and sit with them in the meetings and ask questions that haven't been asked. I'm usually very quiet, just sit back and listen, because I want to make sure that the client is asking the right questions, getting the answers that they want. Sometimes I know questions that they're not asking that they should be asking. And also that the salesperson is asking questions from them, the client, the potential resident, to get to understand what they're looking for. Right. So it's not just an internet service where you call me up and I give you a list of places to go. I paved the way. I greased the skids for everybody, and I actually will, lack of a better term, hold your hand through the process.
Right, right. Which, as we talked about earlier, is so complicated. I mean, that's such an awesome service. As we're running out of time here, one quick question. I just want to touch upon finances. I know that the issue of long-term care, assisted living, nursing home, blah, 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 and Medicaid can be very confusing. So just very quickly, assisted living and Medicaid, what's the real deal here?
So Medicaid does not pay for assisted living. Medicaid will help pay for skilled nursing. There are a few communities that take Medicaid at a certain point in time, either very beginning or when you start to have to pay down to go. Very, very few of them. And those places that do take the Medicaid, it can be a 2 to 5 year waiting list because there are lots of people who can't afford the average. The average price of assisted living is about $6,000 a month. So but Medicaid does not cover room and board at an assisted living. The assisted living is essentially your home, your apartment.
Right, right, right. And just keep in mind, just for everybody as context, right, that $6,000 a month is your living expenses, but it also includes the food and all the other things. So it's not like you're paying $6,000 for a mortgage payment and then you gotta go buy your own food, right? So there are other things included. So 6,000 is not. I mean, yeah, it's a big number, but it's not as
it's a big number. But all your food, all your utilities, transportation to doctor's appointments, activities, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, it's all in there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And just before we wrap up here, so John, what's the best way to people, if people need your service, which is a fantastic service, how can people get a hold of you? What's the best way people can get a hold of you?
Call me on the phone. It's 508-878-8878. And my service is 100% no charge to you, the client. I get compensated by the whatever assisted living community that my clients move into. So,
which is whatever is right for them, right? I mean, you don't, like you said, you don't just say, here's a list of 10.
Right.
It's, here are the 2 or 3 that actually fit your needs the best.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm looking for the best place for you.
All right. Awesome, John. Thank you so much. I really love having you on. It's great to see you. Number one, great for you to share your information with everyone. Thank you so much for being part of Webinar Wednesday, and thank you for everyone for being on. Anyone who has registered, you will get an email with the link to this recording, and within about a week and a half or so, this recording will also be posted to my YouTube channel. So again, if you missed anything, you can go back and watch. And many thanks to my special guest, Jon Younger of Assisted Living Locators.
Thank you, Jack.
And everybody, please have a great night and please stay safe. All right. Take care, everyone.
Take care, everybody.